welcome back. Yes, we are going to be talking about everybody's favorite topic for the last 6 months, generative AI. What's it going to be doing to our industry, with our industry? What kind of amazing things are we going to build with it? And what kind of impact is it going to have on designing and developing software? And we have none other than former AI R&D manager at Apple's Special Projects Division, who's going to be up here on stage. He's also the founder and CEO of Aleph Alpha, and he's going to be interviewed by editor-at-large at TechCrunch, Mike Butcher. Please give it up for Jonas Andrulis and Mike Butcher! Enjoy.
Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I hope you're having a great time. I hope your hangovers aren't too strong after the party last night. My name is Mike Butcher. I'm editor-at-large for TechCrunch, a small little news website you may have heard of, based out of London. And it's my pleasure today to speak to Jonas from Aleph Alpha. Jonas, you're coming to us really at a seminal moment in technology. Generative AI is obviously now the hottest news story in the technology world. And I remember speaking to you in 2021, this small German startup I'd never heard of, coming out of the door with a very large funding round, about 20 million, something like that. And I thought, wow, who are these guys? And where have they come from? And I remember you saying, yeah, we're gonna, you know, we're kind of be in the open AI space. And I thought, oh yeah, open AI, yeah, that non-profit. So it's been a fascinating journey, and you've now come a long way. You've raised, I think, over $120 million at this point. Something.
So some of that are still rumors.
Some of that, yes. Neither confirm nor deny, yes, as they say to journalists. But what's fascinating is how you're very much a kind of European story, and I think that's something I want to touch upon. But perhaps let's go back a little bit. Let's rewind. You were at Apple, working on artificial intelligence projects. You were in special projects inside Apple. So tell us everything that you know about what happened there.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with a name like Special Projects, of course, I can disclose everything.
Did you try the Apple headset on?
So the Apple headset didn't exist back then, right?
Right.
Maybe it was in development. That would have seemed feasible, right?
Yeah, maybe. I suppose we could speculate. Let's talk about your company. It's very much around working with companies and governments. But, you know, a lot of people might be asking, why have you not released, you know, sort of a foundational AI, ChatGPT product? Tell us about that.
So the focus for like ChatGPT is like a B2C focus. It's basically technology that does your homework or you can play around with. And it's very good at that. And this is not our focus at all.
Yeah.
Right? So we don't care, because I really believe there's nothing for us to win in the B2C space. Like, we are basically, the price point is set somewhat low by the competition out there. There's a lot of competition, there's a lot of kind of chatbots, a lot of people are competing for that space, and the things that make us really strong are our sovereignty, our explainability, and the consumers don't care about that. They don't care about their data sovereignty, they don't care about transparency.
You've really specifically gone for this idea of working with governments, specifically the German government.
Well, you got to start somewhere, right? So from the very beginning, we focused on highly regulated, complex, critical use cases, not just government, but also legal or health or financial industry, right? So we set out to solve AI for the things that are really difficult and really critical, and we cannot afford to get them wrong. And this is very different from ChatGPT, because ChatGPT will be wrong every once in a while, and nobody really cares.
So, what difference in what way then? Do you want to unpack that?
Yeah, so one kind of function or one capability that's built on our proprietary research is basically a level of explainability that goes further than pretty much everything that's out there, in a sense that when you look at references or explainability that kind of some other tools are offering, it's basically just links to sources based on retrieval embeddings. And this is fine, but in many cases, when you actually look at the source and read through that, you'll find that it doesn't actually back the claim. So there's no guarantee, and it even kind of provides you a false sense of security in a sense that you say, oh, there's a source for that, right? It's got to be right. And more often than not, it's not right. It's not completely right, or it may even be completely wrong. And so what we, through a manipulation in the attention mechanism, I don't want to get too nerdy here, but well, it's basically
we are developers, so
well, but it's linear algebra. It's special interest. But basically, through a manipulation in the attention mechanism, we found a way to trace the flow of knowledge and factual information, not just through documents and links and URLs, but basically through individual sentences and tokens. So you can basically chart the complete flow of information, not only on the positive side, in the sense that what observation backs what kind of claim, but also on the negative side. Do I have anything that would contradict that claim? And so we can basically map the whole context on positive and negative back sources. And this is really necessary for human to take responsibility, because that's our goal. We want to have a medical professional or a government official. We want to put them in a position where they can take responsibility for the outcome.
Would you criticize other foundational models for approaching it differently?
Not at all. I mean, it's great to have something to do your homework with.
It's damning with faint praise, I think, as we say in England. But you're very much working with companies. You were telling me backstage about how you've installed your system with a large enterprise, and they said if this makes a call, a phone's home, then we're firing you.
Exactly.
And our lawyers will be in touch.
Yeah.
Tell us more about that.
I mean, that's the kind of we not just build a model. We were the first multimodal model out there 2 years before GPT-4, but it's a full stack. So it's a complete end-to-end stack that takes care of deployment, scaling, fine-tuning, inferencing, explainability. So basically, it's a complete end-to-end stack that you can deploy, and that has no external dependencies. And what customers are doing with that is, in this instance, on-prem, they're deploying it in an isolated, protected environment, and they tell us that we don't want any call ever, any information, any ping ever going out. Because we're running critical use cases, we're running it on IP that we really want to protect, and we want to be able to take full control of everything that's happening. We want to understand everything that's happening, so that kind of none of our functionality is hidden behind APIs. You can look at everything, you can say, okay, I understand what's going on, I can isolate it, I can run it air-gapped, and there's not a lot of offers that can do that.
Is there a danger that some of your systems will become too siloed, that you're working almost on a sort of consultancy basis rather than a platform base? What's your sort of approach to scaling?
I mean, when you have basically installed software, there's always this challenge of you can have different versions floating around, and then you basically run into all kinds of trouble. So of course, there's a lot of positives about cloud-based SaaS solutions or APIs. But for kind of some use cases, I mean, we build our own data center, by the way. We have basically our own, it's Europe's most powerful commercial AI cluster. And so we have some workloads also on there. But we have customers that basically don't want to send data to anywhere, not even our proprietary data center. And I think we need to empower these customers. It's important for society that we not just get writing homework and customer support chatbots right, but also that we can empower the use cases that are critical, that are valuable.
Is that going to be the big growth area of the industry, do you think, in the future, this approach that you're taking, as opposed to the sort of the foundational ones like from Google and OpenAI, etc.?
I mean, yes, but of course, Microsoft, Google, they also know that there's a lot of value there. There's Harvey basically tackling legal use cases. So we're not the only team that has understood that if you can 2x the productivity of a lawyer, that's basically worth infinite money. Right? And so I think it's a little bit more difficult, and basically the explainability that we developed helps a lot to kind of build human-machine paradigm that is trustworthy in these environments. But I would expect more research coming out from other teams in that direction as well.
SAP invested in you. They also, at the same time, invested in Cohere, Anthropic as well. What do you think their strategy is there? Are they hedging their bets?
Yeah, you can certainly look at it that way. I think it makes sense for a company like SAP to stay somewhat independent. I mean, the same that all our customers worry about. They worry about their sovereignty, they worry about their independence. And of course, this also makes sense from the perspective of SAP to say, okay, we want to maybe be a little bit careful because they also don't know where our journey will go. So I think it makes perfect sense.
You're based in Heidelberg. We're in Berlin. Berlin still seems to be a big epicenter of tech in Germany. Why are you in Heidelberg?
Well, there's a lot of good things about Berlin, and there's good stories to tell about Munich. But also Heidelberg is one of the most beautiful places to be. The ecosystem is extremely strong. Like we're in Baden-Württemberg, in the south of Germany. We got some of the best universities. We got some of the most innovative companies, and the engineering talent is incredibly strong. And I'm always joking with, we do have a small Berlin office, but I'm always joking with the folks at the Berlin office that I'm about as fast at Frankfurt Airport than they are to Berlin Airport. So it's a lot closer. Like when you look at the distance we have to the universities around us, like Karlsruhe, Tübingen, Darmstadt, it's all below 1 hour.
Right. So, I mean, that speaks to the war for talent that's going on right now. There was obviously a big story the other day about Netflix paying $900,000 for a product person in AI or something. What's the sort of, tell us about the talent war a little bit. And what kinds of people are you looking for as well? Do you think that people have the right skills to enter this sector right now?
So we are in a somewhat fortunate position that on the tech side of things, we are so attractive that we are basically can hire through inbound. It's not that easy for roles like marketing and sales. And with the current growth, we are basically hiring all roles. So kind of all roles you can imagine a company like ours would have, we're hiring for. And for tech, we are fortunate because our mission is somewhat special. Like we're doing something that's rather unique than not a lot of companies that are doing it like the way we are doing it. We have contributed to the research in a way that maybe only OpenAI and DeepMind have contributed to in the last years. So I think this put us on the map for people that want to do hardcore research. Our backend is built in Rust. So this is great software. We got an amazing software engineering talent there. So I think we're in a lucky position. But overall speaking, of course, the war for tech talent is on the rise. It's crazy somewhat.
You're very much passionate about supporting Europe and also I think you've mentioned to me about you're concerned about supporting democracy as well with AI. What's your thinking about that? You talked about data sovereignty. What do you think of where the EU is going? Because obviously the EU is producing a lot of laws around regulation around AI, or going to in the next few months, year or so. What's your commentary about that?
Yeah. I'm on the phone with Brussels and Berlin a lot. It's no secret that I'm somewhat outspoken against regulation or against heavy regulation. I think that from a European perspective, we're not necessarily in a pole position on AI. So, I mean, even with like bigger funding for us and for other teams, we are still somewhat catching up. And we don't have as strong of an ecosystem. We don't have these big corporate giants that are funding AI R&D with billions. So in a situation like that, basically throttling innovation with regulation, because, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Even if you agree that regulation is necessary, I think there's no doubt that it'll divert resources away from innovation to compliance. It'll make us slower. It'll make us more careful. And I don't think we can afford that.
I mean, do you think that we're going to catch up? Or, I mean, you said you used a bit of diplomatic language there, but are you concerned?
I am, yeah. I am very much concerned. I mean, one of the reasons, so I don't necessarily see sovereignty as a European project alone. I think all liberal democracies should worry about a future where we'll live in a world that will be created by AI. And if this AI will be dominated by huge multinational companies, then the world we live in, the world our kids and their kids will grow up in, will be not built on the values and principles of our liberal democracies, but based out of corporate interests. I think this is something that concerns us all.
Well, yeah, I think that's worth some applause. You've made quite a strong commitment to open source as well, such as Elutha AI, is that right?
Yeah.
And academic partnerships. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we are supporting open source communities. We work with Elutha quite a bit. We open sourced our multimodality. I had a few sleepless nights before I did that because we were kind of the first. So I was worried about if I open source it with a permissible license, will I give away something that I need to survive? I think this is always the balance in a way, right? That we don't have hundreds of millions of cash that we can waste. So, and I don't want to earn money by monetizing our community. I don't want to sell user data. I don't want to show you ads. So the only kind of route for monetization for us is IP, right? So, and of course this goes always like it's a balancing act. But I believe that AI R&D, our contribution to research, is critical to our core mission. And I also believe that you cannot meaningfully contribute to research if it's not reproducible. I'm really annoyed by some of the recent papers that are basically a mixture of like a marketing prospectus and a research paper and leave out essential information for reproduction.
Tell us a little bit more about that, though.
So I come from a time where there were machine learning papers that basically went like this. We ran this algorithm, and we're not going to show you the algorithm. We basically just describe it on a high-level basis on data that only we have, and these are our results. And these were best papers on CVPR. And looking at it from today's perspective, this is ridiculous. You cannot judge research. Like, the whole idea about research is sharing knowledge, contributing findings and experiments and ideas to the shared consciousness of researchers. And so this requires transparency, this requires reproducibility. And if you basically are saying, we got an API, we don't tell you what's happening behind it, but it does cool AI, this is not research. This is a product, and it's fine, you can have that product, but then don't claim that you're contributing to research.
Fair enough, absolutely. You're working with GraphCore. So, and those of you who don't know, GraphCore's supposedly AI on a chip. It's very much sort of around edge computing. Do you want to unpack a little bit more about that relationship?
Yeah. What I love about GraphCore, like first of all, I love the team. I love Nigel. It's a great
They're
chap.
a UK company, yeah?
Yeah, UK company based out of Bristol. Phenomenal team. They've been great partners. And what I love about their approach is that when we look at the paradigm of current AI, what's happening is that we're scaling up these dense transformers. And this is the reason why companies are spending on tens of thousands of GPUs. Because if you scale up dense transformers, you basically have this quadratic complexity that's eating away your compute need. So the bigger you make these models, the more data you need to train them, the more compute you need to train them. And that's super inefficient. That is like if we would, looking at human brains, if we would, for everything we want to learn, activate all our neurons everywhere in the brain. That would be incredibly wasteful and expensive. We're not doing that. So what we would want to do is we would want to have a more modular setup where we can do local learning, where we can have a part of the brain that learns certain things. And so we need much less data and much less compute to focus on the area that really stores this knowledge. And when we look at biological brains, the distance from beginning to end for a signal hop is rather short. It's not that deep, but it has control flow, it has loops, it has residuals. So I think these kind of structures are much more efficient and are much more promising for the next generation of AI problem. GPUs are really bad at learning and at running these kind of structures. They're not built for that. And this is why I love what GraphCore is building, because their IPU is like a mixture of a GPU and a CPU. So it's not multiple instruction, single data. It's not single data, multiple instructions, but it's multiple instruction, multiple data. So you could have a more conditional sparsity. You could have like a more interactive system that can run control flows at the same time process on huge amounts of data.
Do you think that's going to give you an advantage in the space, that relationship with GraphCore?
So if I would guess what the next big thing is, I would bet on modularity. I would bet on control flows, on conditional sparsity, and I mean, the next generation of GraphCore is coming. I'm crossing fingers that it'll be as awesome as I hope it will be. But if so, then yeah, this partnership will give us an advantage.
What's going to, I think on the lips of many people here is, what is AI going to do to software development? You know, people talking about, you know, conjuring software just with words almost. What's your opinion on some of that debate?
So software development has always been humans learning a special language to talk to machines. And in some ways, this is no longer necessary, because machines can now understand human language very well. So I think that's super interesting in the sense that we can now solve logical problems with machines in somewhat similar ways than we would do as humans. But I mean, this is somewhat of a tricky area, because the stochastic parrot has limited reasoning abilities. So we are still very much on a surface level of what we can do with large language models, for example. But what we will see is that there are now things that were incredibly hard to do with classic software in the past that large language models can do very well. And there are things that they're not very good at. And the interesting area is the interface between a large language model and software, because large language model can only output text tokens. And software is always symbolic. It's always like thinking in structures and in symbols, data structures, events, APIs, parameters. And how you connect the two is not super obvious. We'll be launching something that might be helpful there this year. But I think this is really where a lot of innovation is necessary, because just parsing the text output of an LLM and then executing some software base out of that doesn't feel right to me.
Right. So there's something going to be coming out later this year. Hopefully you'll give it to TechCrunch first. We're getting towards the end, and it would be remiss of me not to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about where you sit on the debate that's been blowing up over the last few months about whether or not artificial intelligence is going to mean the end of the world, or if it's, as if you're a fan of Andreessen Horowitz, who recently published an article about how it's going to see the blossoming of a new age for humanity. What's your views on that subject?
So 99% of AI researchers don't think that AI will kill us all. And I enjoy doomer fan fiction as much as the next guy. But I don't think that there is immediate danger for X risk. I think there is some danger. There's some danger in the sense that we are now in the fastest moving industrial revolution ever. And our institutions, our companies, our governments, they're not equipped to handle this speed and this amount of change. I think we have to work on securing our values in a new era and making sure that, like, knowledge work, when you look at Europe or Western countries, we are basically knowledge workers. This is the big part of our value contribution. But if AI will be, and this will happen within a few years, if AI will be a major contributor to knowledge work and will reshape all knowledge work, then the divide between labor and IP that's going on since the 70s will be on turbocharged. So I think this is a challenge for our societies, for what we believe in, how we want to work and live together. I think this is a much more critical danger than us being turned into paper clips.
Right. Well, look out, Mr. Clippy. It's very interesting. I think it's fascinating to see a European company approach things in the way that you are, and just thinking about, I think, a lot of these bigger issues, especially around protecting our democracies, especially in this era that we're living in now. But for me, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch and from Jonas Andrus from Aleph Alpha, thank you so much for coming to We Are Developers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks very much, Ken.
Thanks.
Really great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike.
Cheers.
Thank you. That was super interesting. Now we're going to do a short break, about 15 minutes, and then we're going to be talking about developing a hypercar from scratch with no knowledge of, no previous knowledge of developing a hypercar. So that's pretty cool. See you then. Cheers.
you.